So thank you for the moderator to giving me a time to explain about literature in modern times. And it's so unfortunate that we have this meeting online right now. And yeah, let's begin. So today I'm going to bring a topic about literature in modern times. And we have three agenda today: the introduction, main topic, and conclusion. Okay, so the first one is introduction. As we know that literary modernism or modernist literature originate in the late 19th and early 20th centuries and is characterized by a self-conscious break with a traditional ways of writing in both poetry and prose fiction writing. Also, modernism experimented with literary form and expression as exemplified by Ezra Pound Maxim to make it new. Okay, so it was a brief introduction about uh, what is literature in modern times, and I brought a literary modernism in this presentation. Okay, moving on to the next one is main topic. So I'm going to explain about the origin and precursor. In the 1980, increased attention was given to the idea that it was necessary to push aside previous norm entirely, instead of merely revising past knowledge in the light of contemporary technique. The theories of Sigmund Freud and Ernst Mach influenced early modernist literature. Ernst Mach argued that the mind had a fundamental structure and the subjective experiments was based on interplay of part of the mind in the science of mechanics. Freud also first major work was studies on hysteria. He studied with Joseph Breuer in 1905. Okay. According to Freud, all subjective reality was based on the play of basic drive and instinct, through which the outside world was perceived. As a philosopher of science, Ernst Mach was a major influence on logical positivism, and through his criticism of Isaac Newton, a forerunner of Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. And also is that another major precursor of modernism was uh, by Friedrich Nietzsche, especially his idea that physiological drive, especially the will to power, were more important than facts or things. Henry Bergson also, on the other hand, emphasized the difference between scientific clock time and direct subjective human experience of time. His work on time and consciousness had great influence on 20th century novelists, especially those modernists who used the stream of consciousness techniques such as Dorothy Richardson for the book Pointed, uh, Proof, James Joyce for Ulysses, and Virginia Woolf for Miss Dalloway and To the Lighthouse. Also important in Bergson's philosophy was idea of Alan Vital, the life force which bring about the creative evolution of everything. His philosophy also places a high value on intuition, uh, though without rejecting the importance of the intellect. These various thinkers were united by a distrust of Victorian positivism and certainty. Modernism as literary movement can also be seen as a reaction of to the industrialization, urbanization, and new technologies. Okay, so we're moving on to the modernist writer. Early modernist writer, especially those writing after World War One and the disillusionment that followed, broke the implicit contract with the general public that artists were the reliable interpreter and representative of mainstream, or they say it was Burgess culture and ideas, and instead develop unreliable narrators exposing the irrationality of at the roots of a supposedly rational world. They also attempt to address the changing ideas about reality developed by Charles Darwin, and Ernst Mach, Freud, Albert Einstein, and Nietzsche, Bergson, and the others. From this development of innovative literary techniques such as stream of consciousness, interior monologue, as well as uh, the use of multiple point of view, this can reflect doubts that the philosopher basis of realism on alternatively an expansion of our understanding of what is meant by realism. For example, the use of stream of consciousness or interior monologue reflects that need the greater for the greater psychological realism. Okay, moving on to the next one is modernist writer in Italy. In Italian literature, the generation of poets represented by Eugenio Montalvo with his creation, the title is Osi di Seppia. Giuseppe Ungaretti is another famous poet in Italian. With his creation is Allegria di Naufragi, and also one of another famous poets in Italy. His name is Umberto Saba, with his famous creation is Ganzonier embodies modernism. This new generation broke with the tradition of Giselle Carducci, Giovanni Pascoli, and Gabriel de Annunzio. The term of style, language, and tone, they were aware that of the crisis deriving from the decline of the traditional role of the poet as foreseer, teacher, or prophet. In a world that has absorbed Friedrich Nietzsche's lesson, the poets want to renew literature according to the new cultural world of the 20th century. For example, Montel used epiphany to reconstruct the meaning, while Saba incorporated Friedrich's concept of physical analysis. Okay, so moving on. This one is modernist literature. Also, this one is also a conclusion for our today's phase one talk show. Okay, so it's about modernist literature, as we presented before, that though the Oxford Encyclopedia of British Literature sees modernism ending by the year of 1939 with regard to British and American literature, when, if modernists pattered out, the postmodernism began has been confused almost as closely as when the transition from Victorianism to modernism occurred. Clement Greenberg sees whether modernism ending in the 1930s, with the exception of the visual and performing arts. In fact, many literary modernists lived into the 1950s and 1960s, though generally speaking, they were no longer producing the major work. Okay, so I think that's it for first talk show, and I bring it back to the moderator. Thank you.